whispers on the watchtower.
There's a saying among rangers, the woods are quiet because something's watching. Most people laugh it off, just a spooky campfire line. But if you've worked night watch alone, way out in the middle of the forest, you know it's not a joke. I learned that the hard way. It was a late November night, a few years back. I'd been assigned to fire tower duty, 12 hours alone in a wooden box perched 50 feet above the treetops. From up there, you can see for miles. The ridges rolling into the horizon, the black ocean of pines swaying under the stars. It's beautiful, but also unnerving. Because once you're up there, you're cut off. No roads, no visitors, no backup until sunrise. It was about 2 a.m. when it started. I'd been sitting with my thermos of coffee, trying not to doze off, when the radio on my belt crackled. At first, I thought it was just static, but then I heard it. Faint, almost like a whisper.
Cole.
I froze. My name, clear as day. I grabbed the receiver. Station? This is Ranger Cole. Say again. Nothing but static. Now, that shouldn't have been possible. Nobody knew I was on that frequency except the other Rangers, and none of them would call me by my first name, not over the radio. I tried again. Station, come in. The static swelled. For a second, I thought I heard words buried in it, too faint to make out, but there was definitely a voice there.
You shouldn't be up there.
I pulled the headset off, heart pounding. Maybe it was interference, I told myself. Some trucker bleeding into the signal. Happens all the time. But deep down, I knew better. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't stop checking the tree line. From that height, the forest looks like a black sea stretching forever. The kind of view that makes you realize just how small you are. That's when I noticed something strange. A light. Down in the valley, about a half-mile out, something pale flickered between the trees. At first, I thought it was a campfire, but it didn't move like fire. It was steady, pulsing faintly, like it was breathing. I raised my binoculars. The glass caught it just for a second, and I swear I saw someone standing there. A figure, too tall, too thin, just watching the tower. By the time I blinked, it was gone. The radio hissed again.
He's still looking.
That whisper. I swear it was right in my ear, even though the headset lay across the desk. I spun, shining my flashlight into every corner of the tower. Just wood walls and equipment. Nothing out of place. I told myself I was overtired, needed air. I stepped out onto the catwalk. The cold hit me immediately, sharp enough to sting my lungs. The forest stretched silent in every direction. My light swept across the canopy. No eyes shining back, no movement, nothing. But when I killed the beam and stood in the dark, I could feel it. Something down there, watching. I went back inside and locked the door, even though the lock was little more than a joke. Hours passed. The whispers came and went. Sometimes they were just static, sometimes clearer. I heard my name more than once. Heard it like someone is right behind me. And then, around 4 a.m., I heard footsteps. On the stairs. Now, those stairs are metal. 50 feet of them spiraling up the support beams. They creak under every step. And in the dead quiet of night I could hear them, slow and deliberate, one after another, clang, clang, clang. Someone, or something, was climbing the tower. I backed away from the door, flashlight in one hand, flare gun in the other. My mouth went dry, my heart slamming against my ribs. The steps came closer. 20 feet up, 30, 40. Then silence, right outside the door. I held my breath. The wood paneling shivered under a weight pressing against it. Just standing there, listening. The radio exploded with static, loud enough to make me jump. And through the static, a voice, perfectly clear this time.
Don't open it.
I stared at the door, every nerve screaming. The handle twitched. Just once. A test. I fired the flare gun. The red light burst against the ceiling, filling the room with a blinding glow. The door rattled, like something recoiling from it. I heard the footsteps retreat, fast now, clanging down the stairs 2 at a time. I rushed out onto the catwalk in time to see it vanish into the trees. Not a man, not even close. It moved wrong. Too long, too limber, like a puppet pulled on strings. The flare's dying light painted it blood red as it disappeared into the pines. By sunrise, the forest looked normal again. Birds singing, frost glittering in the branches. When the next ranger came to relieve me, I tried to explain what happened. He gave me a long look, then shook his head.
You've been on watch too long. Happens to everyone, eventually. The isolation gets in your head.
But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. And sometimes when I'm alone in the tower, I still hear the radio crackle. Only now, it doesn't whisper my name. It whispers something else.
Jump.
The lantern in the pines.
I've always loved the stillness of the forest at night. There's a kind of peace in it. The quiet you don't get anywhere else. Out here you can hear the tiniest sounds carry for miles. A snapping twig, the hoot of an owl, the scurry of something small darting through the brush. But when you're a park ranger, that stillness is also what makes night patrol so unnerving. It doesn't take much. One flicker of movement, one sound out of place, and suddenly your imagination is running circles around you. That's what I kept telling myself that night. That I was just letting the dark get to me. It was mid-October, cool enough that the breath hung in front of me like smoke. My shift had started at 6 p.m., but by the time midnight rolled around, I was the only one left on patrol. My partner, Jesse, had clocked out earlier, leaving me to make one last sweep along the ridge trail. The trail cuts through one of the older parts of the forest. Massive pines that block out most of the moonlight. The kind of place where your flashlight beam feels swallowed whole. I'd walked it dozens of times before, but that night something felt different. I remember checking my watch, 12:47 a.m., when I noticed it, a faint light between the trees. At first, I thought it was just someone camping where they weren't supposed to. We get our fair share of kids sneaking out here to drink or couples looking for a private spot. But the light wasn't a campfire. It was too pale, too steady. It looked like a lantern. I froze, watching it bob up and down in the distance. Now, that wouldn't be all that strange on its own, but here's the thing. I was at least 3 miles from any campsite, and the only road access was locked behind the ranger station gate. Nobody should have been out there. I keyed the radio. "Station, this is Ranger Jackson. I've got a visual on an unauthorized light source near the ridge trail. Possible lost hiker. I'm gonna check it out." The radio hissed with static, then silence. No reply. I frowned. The reception could get patchy in the ridges, but it usually came through. I tried again. Same result. That's when I made my first mistake. I started toward the light. The deeper I went, the darker it seemed to get. The lantern's glow would vanish behind tree trunks, then reappear, just far enough ahead to keep me moving. Whoever was carrying it wasn't in a hurry, but they weren't stopping either. I called out, "Hey, park ranger, hold up, I'll get you back to the trailhead." No answer. The light just kept bobbing. I picked up the pace, crunching over the carpet of pine needles. My beam cut through the trees, but the figure holding the lantern never came into view. After 10 minutes, I realized something was wrong. The trail was gone. I stopped, turning in a slow circle. The forest around me was unfamiliar. The trees closer together, their branches like interlocked fingers blocking the sky. I should have been able to see the ridge from here, but all I saw were shadows. The lantern swayed in the distance, maybe 30 yards ahead, and then, for the first time, it stopped. I raised my light. "Sir? Ma'am, whoever you are, stop right there." The lantern hung in place. The silence pressed in around me, and then it lowered. Slowly, deliberately, as if whoever held it was setting it on the ground. That should have been a relief, right? Maybe they'd finally heard me, maybe they were waiting. But the second the lantern touched the earth, every hair on my arm stood on end. Something primal in me screamed to turn around, to run back the way I came. I didn't listen. When I reached the clearing, I saw the lantern sitting alone on the ground. It was an old thing, rusted metal, cracked glass, with no one around it. But the ground around the lantern, it wasn't right. The pine needles had been cleared away, revealing bare earth in a perfect circle, maybe 20 feet across. Symbols had been carved into the dirt, spirals and jagged shapes I didn't recognize. Some of them looked fresh, others half faded like they'd been there for years. And standing around the circle just beyond the glow of my flashlight were figures. They weren't moving, they weren't speaking, just standing there perfectly still as if they'd been waiting for me. There must have been a dozen of them, their faces hidden by crude masks, rough-hewn wood carved into vague expressions. Hollow eyes, two wide grins, long down-turned mouths. My stomach dropped. This wasn't hikers, this wasn't kids messing around. I stumbled back, fumbling for the radio again. "Station, come in. We've got trespassers. I need backup right now." Only static. The figures didn't react. They just stood there watching me. And then, together, they began to hum. It was low at first, so faint I thought my ears were ringing. But it grew louder, vibrating through the ground, through my chest, until I thought my ribs would crack. I shouted, "Stop! This is federal land, you can't..." But my words drowned in their sound. The humming rose into a chant, a language I couldn't place, the syllables twisting in ways that hurt to hear. And from the center of the circle, from the earth itself, came an answering sound. A scratching, a clawing, like something beneath the soil was trying to dig its way out. I should have run. God, I should have run right then. But I was frozen, flashlight trembling in my hand, staring as the ground inside the circle began to shift. The dirt bulged upward, cracked, split. Fingers, long gray, jointed in ways no fingers should be, pushed through the soil. The masked figures raised their arms in unison. Their chant thundered in my skull. I stumbled backward, my light catching on something else. The trees around the clearing. Each one had been carved with the same spirals, the same jagged symbols, their bark stripped raw. And nailed into their trunks were animal skulls. Deer, raccoon, even a bear. Each one hollow-eyed, staring into the circle. The ground heaved again and a face broke the surface. Not human, not animal, something else. Its skin was slick, its mouth too wide, teeth like splintered bone. It opened its eyes, milky white, blind yet searching, and the chant reached a fever pitch. That snapped me out of it. I turned and ran. Branches whipped my face, roots caught my boots, but I didn't stop. Behind me, I heard the earth splitting wider, the guttural roar of something being born into the night. The chanting followed me, the humming, and underneath it all, the sound of that thing crawling free. I don't remember how I made it back to the trail. Don't remember how long I ran before I saw the faint outline of the ranger station lights through the trees. But I'll never forget the last thing I heard before I burst out of the pines. A voice, not human, not even close, whispering from the dark.
We found you.
I reported what I saw. Of course, nobody believed me. They said I'd gotten turned around, that the symbols were probably vandals, that the figures were just shadows playing tricks. But here's the thing. The next day, when I went back with a search team, the clearing was gone. No circle, no lantern, no masks, nothing. Just untouched forest. Still, I know what I saw, I know what I heard. And I know that somewhere beneath the pines that thing is still clawing. Waiting.
The Hollow Trail.
They say every forest has its own secrets. Some whisper about hidden caves, or old moonshine stills, or things that walked the woods long before us. But there's one stretch of trail in my park that nobody talks about. The maps don't even label it anymore. We call it the Hollow Trail. It's been closed off for decades, overgrown, swallowed back by the pines. But sometimes, when I'm out on night patrol, I'll hear voices from that direction. Voices that don't belong to anyone living. I didn't believe in cryptids before that night. I do now. My shift started like any other. The forest was heavy with fog, the air sharp and damp. I was on ATV patrol, checking for poachers and making sure no hikers had wandered off after dark. The radio crackled once or twice, but it was just the station checking in. Everything felt routine until I noticed the tracks. Deer, maybe, but not quite. The prints were too wide, too deep. The claws dug deep grooves in the mud. Whatever it was heavy, and it wasn't moving like a deer. No zigzag, no grazing spots, just a straight, deliberate line into the fog, straight toward the Hollow Trail. I should have reported it, called it in, but something about those tracks pulled me, like I had to follow. The further I went, the quieter the forest got. No crickets, no owls, no wind. Just the sound of my own boots crunching leaves. I passed the old trail marker, the one the forest hadn't yet swallowed whole. The wood was rotten, the letters barely legible, but I could still make them out. Hollow Trail, 2 miles. The air felt colder there, heavier, and that's when I heard it. A low growl, not a bear, not a mountain lion, something deeper, something wrong. I froze, hand tightening on my flashlight. The sound came again, closer now, vibrating in my chest. That's when I saw the eyes, glowing amber, about 6 feet off the ground, staring at me through the fog. I raised my light, and for half a second, I wished I hadn't. It was tall, too tall, 8 feet, maybe more, with limbs too long for its body. Its skin hung loose, like it had been stretched over bones it didn't fit, and its face, if you could call it that, was a nightmare. the jaw unhinged wider than any human's, teeth jagged like broken glass. It didn't run. It didn't roar. It just smiled. I backed up slow, keeping the light on it. My radio hissed at my belt, voices cutting through static.
Don't look away.
It wasn't the station. It wasn't any ranger. The creature stepped forward, and the fog seemed to follow it, curling around its limbs like smoke. Then it did something I'll never forget. It mimicked. In a voice almost like my own, it said, "Where you going, Stephen?" My blood turned to ice. It had heard me, learned me. I stumbled backward, tripping on roots, flashlight beam shaking wildly. By the time I steadied it, the thing was gone. But the forest wasn't empty. All around me, in the fog, other shapes moved. More eyes glinting between the trees. Too many. The hollow trail wasn't home to a cryptid. It was a nest. I ran. God help me, I ran harder than I ever had. Branches tore at my face. The radio blared with whispers that weren't human, and the sound of claws scraped behind me. Sometimes I'd glimpse them, pale shapes darting between trees, moving faster than anything should move. One of them got close enough to brush against me. Its hand, if it was a hand, left a welt on my arm that burned for weeks. I didn't stop until I broke out onto the service road. The fog ended like a wall, and the night air rushed back in, full of crickets and wind and the smell of pine. The hollow trail behind me was silent. I filed my report, left out the details, of course, just said I'd chased off a bear. But the rangers who've been here long enough, they gave me a look. They knew. Nobody goes near the hollow trail anymore. Not officially, anyway. But sometimes, late at night, when the fog creeps too close to the station, I'll hear my own voice on the wind, calling me back.
Ashes in the Pines.
You don't choose nights like this. The woods choose them for you. It was my third night in a row on graveyard shift, and the forest felt different. The air was still, suffocating, not a single cricket, not even the wind. I'd been a ranger long enough to know silence is never good. It means something is wrong, a predator nearby, a fire creeping, or worse. That night it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. I parked the truck by Pine Hollow and started on foot. My flashlight carved thin slices of light through the endless trees, illuminating only what it wanted me to see: jagged bark, roots like broken fingers, patches of ash from the old wildfire that had scarred this place years ago. They called it ashes in the pines back then, a freak fire no one could explain. Some folks whispered it was lightning, others said it was arson. A few, the older ones, muttered it wasn't natural at all. And standing there, I believed them. The air carried that faint scent of smoke, faint but fresh, like the fire was still burning somewhere, hidden just out of sight. The first sign of trouble was the campfire. It wasn't allowed, no burn permits, too close to the old fire zone. But there it was, a small, steady flame flickering in the hollow. I approached cautiously, hand near the radio. The closer I got, the worse the smell became. It wasn't just wood burning, it was acrid, like hair, like meat. I swung the light over the fire. No campers, no tents, just a ring of stones and that small flame. But in the fire pit, what was burning wasn't logs. It was bones. Charred black, some cracked open, marrow seeping. Animal, maybe. Maybe not. I wanted to believe it was deer, coyotes, Something hunters had left, but the shape of one, long, narrow, unmistakably human, made bile rise in my throat. I called it in. Dispatch answered, but their voice was faint, warped by static. "Repeat! Hollow! Don't! Alone!" And then nothing but hiss. I killed the flame with dirt and water from my canteen, though the smell clung to me. That's when I heard it. A whisper.
Soft right behind me.
Why'd you put it out?
I spun. No one. The trees swayed without wind. The ash on the ground shifted like it was being stirred by footsteps. I tried the radio again. Dead. The woods pressed closer, suffocating in their silence. And then I saw them, figures between the pines, pale against the dark, not glowing, not transparent. Flesh. Thin. Ash-stained. They weren't moving like hikers or trespassers. They were standing, perfectly still, watching me. My flashlight beam passed over them, but every time the light hit, they vanished. Only to reappear again, a little closer. I backed away, slow, fighting every instinct that screamed at me to run, but the ground betrayed me. My boot crunched on brittle wood, and the sound echoed too loud. All at once, the figures moved. Not running, not lunging, just shifting, swaying, in unison, like trees bending in a firestorm. The air grew hotter. My lungs burned. Smoke filled the hollow. I stumbled, coughing, my eyes watering. And through the blur, I saw them clearly. Not people, or at least, not anymore. Their skin was blackened, cracked, glowing faintly with ember veins. Their mouths opened, spilling smoke, whispering in voices that weren't their own.
We burned. We burn for them. And so will you.
I bolted. I don't remember how far or how long, just branches tearing at me, ash rising in clouds with every step, smoke filling my chest like it wanted to suffocate me. When I burst back to the truck, I nearly collapsed against the door. The engine coughed but started. Headlights cut the dark, but in that beam, just for a second, I saw them standing at the tree line. Dozens of them, silent, waiting. I floored it, tearing down the dirt road, not daring to look back. By the time I reached the station, dawn was breaking. I stank of smoke, though no fire had been reported. My clothes were streaked with ash. The other rangers didn't believe me. They laughed it off, said maybe I'd found a hunter's kill pile and scared myself. But that night, when I stripped down to shower, I saw it. A handprint burned into my shoulder. Not bruised, not scarred. Burned, black and blistered, the size of a child's hand. And the smell of smoke hasn't left me since. Even now I catch it at the edge of my senses, in my truck, in my bed, in my lungs. I know the fire's still burning. Not in the trees, but in me. And when it finally consumes me, I'll join them in the hollow. Forever.
The Watcher's Den.
When you're a ranger, the woods become your second skin. You learn every sound, every shift of the wind, every shadow cast by moonlight. And you also learn when something isn't right. That night, I didn't just see something wrong. I felt it. It started small. A routine patrol around the lake, flashlight cutting through the trees. Nothing unusual. But the further I walked, the more I felt watched. Now, that's not uncommon in the woods. Deer, owls, even coyotes, they all know how to stay hidden. But this was different. This wasn't prey watching a predator. This was something that understood me. Something that enjoyed the silence, the tension, the way my hand hovered near the radio on my chest. The feeling didn't go away. It got stronger. Half an hour later, I stopped by the old fire tower, abandoned since the 80s. The thing creaked like it could collapse at any moment. But sometimes we checked for squatters or kids sneaking up there to smoke. I swept the light across the base. Empty. Then I looked up. Someone was standing at the top. Tall, thin, perfectly still. Too far to see details, but my gut twisted instantly. The tower hadn't had working stairs in decades. The supports were rusted through. Nobody could have climbed up there without making a racket. And yet, there they were, watching. I called out. My voice felt too loud in the silence. "Ranger service. You're trespassing." No response. My radio crackled. Not with dispatch, but with static so harsh it nearly made me drop it. And in that static, I swear I heard a whisper.
"Still watching?"
When I looked up again, the figure was gone. I should have gone back, should have called it in. But something in me needed to know, needed to prove I wasn't losing it. So I circled the tower, shined my light on the broken stairs, the rusted beams. Nothing. Nobody. But then the woods around me shifted. The trees felt closer. Their shadows stretched longer than they should have, bending at impossible angles. The silence pressed in like a weight, thick enough to choke on. And behind me, footsteps. Not heavy ones, not stomping, just slow, deliberate, pacing me. Every time I turned, the light caught nothing. The worst part? The voice. It wasn't booming or monstrous. It was quiet, almost kind. It said,
"Don't shine the light. You don't want to see me."
I froze. My mouth went dry. The footsteps stopped. And then, in the far corner of the beam, for just a split second, I caught sight of something. It wasn't a person, wasn't even a figure. It was a face, pressed against a tree trunk at eye level, too pale, too wide, eyes too large, watching me. And when the light touched it, it smiled. I ran. God help me, I ran like a rookie fresh out of academy. My lungs burned, branches tore at my arms, but the sound of those footsteps followed me. Not rushing, not chasing, just following. Always just behind me. By the time I reached the station, my hands were shaking too bad to even open the door. I had to slam against it until another ranger let me in. Of course, when I told them what I saw, they gave me that look. The same one I gave rookies who thought they heard Bigfoot. But when I tried to show them my arm, where I swear something had touched me, there was nothing. No bruise, no welt, no mark. Just bare skin. I haven't been the same since that night. Sometimes, when I'm patrolling near the tower, I'll catch a glimpse out of the corner of my eye. A face pressed between the trees. And sometimes, when I'm alone in the ranger station, I'll hear footsteps in the hall behind me. Always slow, always patient. The other rangers don't hear it. They don't believe me. But I know the truth. I'm not just being watched, I'm being studied. And sooner or later, it's going to step out of the shadows, and I'll finally see what's been watching me all this time.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Eerie Archives channel. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you'd like to see in the next video. Until next time, stay eerie.